So we live together in a broken world where there are pieces like this all over the floor here and all over the world. Every day we face sickness, we even face death. There's hitting, as the kids talked about, there's yelling, there's much more that we could list. There are wars where people are killing each other. People are having to leave their homes. There are millions of refugees right now. And that's just part of the brokenness of the world. I'm sure that all of us could list more things that we think illustrate the brokenness in our world. I read an article talking about how the algorithms, this was just last week in the Atlantic, the algorithms on Facebook and Twitter's repeat button tend to magnify the voices that appeal to our baser emotions, tend to galvanize hate, galvanize divisions. Plus, as we think of the brokenness, the parts of our world that seem to be going to pieces, one of them looming way in the far distance is the eventual death of our solar system. It almost seems like when we hear that, like, is it the case that one day God is going to just throw the whole thing in the trash and have it all be incinerated? But on this day, I'm here to tell you that is not the, because we have Jesus. Our text that I had Tim read, the way that it's put by the paraphrase, the Message. From beginning to end, he's there, towering far above everything, everyone, so spacious is he, so expansive that everything of God finds its place in him without crowding. And here's the key that we're going to look at this morning. Through him, all the broken and dislocated pieces of the universe, people, things, animals, atoms, get properly fixed and fit together in vibrant harmony. Jesus is going to heal the world, fix and fit together all the broken and dislocated pieces. Now we can say that. Is there any evidence for that? Can we really be sure of that? Well, here's the reason why I am sure. Because Christ is risen. Jesus can do those things. First of all, remember that Jesus is God. Everything of God finds its place in him, as the Message put it, or the NIV words it, God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him, dwell in Jesus. Jesus is the creator. Jesus knows how things are designed to be run. And therefore, he also knows what fixing them will entail, what it will look like. But he not only knows all, Jesus also loves all. Jesus self-described himself as not high and mighty, but as gentle and lowly. Matthew 11, verses 28 and 29. Jesus said one time, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." Jesus was one who loved the poor. He loved the sick, the outcasts. Here's how good Jesus was at his knowing and loving. Even when judged by today's standards, and we know that the bar has been changing a lot, Jesus still looks good. Think of all the streets and buildings and schools that we are now deciding we need to rename because the person that they were named after no longer measures up. But Jesus is perhaps the only well-known historical figure that when you judge him by today's insights, today's sensibilities on how to treat women and children and the powerless and the marginalized, Jesus passes with flying colors. So that's the first reason that Jesus is able to fix and fit together all the broken and dislocated pieces of the universe, because he knows all and loves all. One who knows all and loves all can give rest and restoration to all. Here's a second reason why Jesus can heal the world, and that is that he offers to forgive all. Here's what Colossians chapter 1 goes on to say. It says, all the broken and dislocated pieces of the universe get properly fixed and fit together, all because of his death, his blood that was poured down from the cross. Or as the NIV, the main Bible translation today, words it, through Jesus, God will reconcile to himself all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross. Jesus, loving all people, included Jesus even loving his enemies. Jesus even loved his own executioners. On the cross, Luke says he prayed, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Now, isn't that kind of love, that kind of forgiveness crazy? I mean, the world is full of people who mistreat others, hurt others, and it's crazy, isn't it, to not punish someone who tramples on you, especially if they're torturing you and you can get back at them in some way? Isn't it crazy if we respond with forgiveness instead? Especially so if you respond that way? Well, it turns out that the only way that broken people and evil people can be healed is through forgiveness. Without forgiveness, there is no hope. We might think the way you stop a bully, one who is hitting others, well, you can stop them by waving a bigger stick over them than what they have. Tell them, don't give me a black eye or I will give you two. And indeed, when we are stronger, when we have a bigger stick to wave, we can change the bully's behavior that way. We make them fear to do wrong. So there is some good in force, in retaliation. It is needed. God, Romans chapter 13 says, God ordained the police force to punish evildoers and to reward those who do good. But that bigger stick is not something that Jesus wielded, because it's not something that can heal the world. We may be stronger today, and so we can make the bullies stay in line, but we may not be stronger tomorrow. Things change. And further, force can only change a bully's behavior, make them better on the outside, but it doesn't change them on the inside. If anything, it makes them worse on the inside, makes their attitude worse. They resent us because we are making them do something. And they look for a way that they can get back at us, drag their heels at least. They're all the more set against us. Force is too weak to heal the bully's heart or attitude. So for the brokenness in this world to be healed, Jesus's way needs to be how things are done to bring that healing. For us to be healed of our sin, our rebellion, we need forgiveness. And for us to be part of Jesus's body, Jesus's army in the world to bring healing, maybe instead of army, I should say his team of teachers, team of nurses and doctors, healing the world. We need to be exercising the forgiveness that Jesus displayed. And Jesus was the only one who came up with this idea of loving even your enemies, forgiving those who have hurt you. It's so counterintuitive. No one else came up with it. Here's what forgiveness looks like. Forgiveness chooses to give love even before it is earned. Jesus loved us who have done wrong before we repent. Sometimes even before we are aware, let ourselves admit that we need to repent. There is strength in love. Not as much strength in force. There are so many things that force cannot do that love can do. Forgiveness also lets go of the need for retribution or for punishment. Now, this is not Jesus saying to us when he forgives us, you sin, but that's all right. No, sin is never all right. But this is Jesus saying, I'm no longer binding you to that past. I will give you a fresh start. I will let you walk with me forward together. And lastly, forgiveness works for restoring the relationship, for reconciliation. Some of us say, well, I forgive that person, but I'm not going to have anything to do with them. But thankfully, that's not the way Jesus and God forgive. Part of them forgiving us is that they work at restoring the relationship with us, working to help us change, working us to help be someone who chooses to do good. So if we want to be an agent of healing the world, helping change those who are bullies and hurt others, we join with Jesus. He shows the way. A third and final reason that Jesus is the one in whom all the broken and dislocated pieces of the universe get properly fixed and fit together is that he is the first of a new creation. Colossians 1:18, our text this morning, begins in the Message. Jesus Christ was supreme in the beginning, and leading the resurrection parade, he is supreme in the end. He's leading the resurrection parade. Jesus was the first to raise from the dead. Christ is risen. And many are following him. As the NIV, that the best-selling Bible translation today, words it, he is the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that in everything he might have the supremacy. Jesus is the first to rise from the dead because he is the first of the age to come. The Bible speaks of this new creation, this age that is going to come, and Jesus is the firstborn of that age. And one day, God is going to do for the whole cosmos what he did for Jesus on Easter morning. He's going to take something apparently in the hold of decay and give it new life. There are many people who are skeptical of the Easter message because when we go to a funeral, we don't expect the corpse to stand up and greet us. No, death is death. But what if a new creation is coming? When it starts to happen, of course it didn't happen before. Scientists view the Big Bang as the beginning point of our current cosmos. And the Big Bang never happened until it happened, right? A new creation is coming. The Apostle Paul describes in Romans chapter 8, verse 22, all creation groaning as in the pains of childbirth. Creation is groaning, but there's new life coming. It's the groaning of childbirth. The verse right before that, Romans chapter 8, verse 21, says, the creation itself will be liberated from its bondage to decay. Rather than the physical universe being destined for destruction or incineration, it's destined for renewal, according to the Bible. One day, living things will no longer be subject to death and decay as they are today. And verse 23 in Romans 8 ties the timing of when this renewal of all creation comes, ties it in with you and I being given our resurrected bodies. Paul's phrase in that verse is the redemption of our bodies. Jesus's resurrection body was the beginning of this new creation. And at one point, that new creation is going to spread to the whole cosmos. And that's the vision that the Bible ends with. Revelation chapter 21. John the Revelator says, I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. And John heard God announce, behold, I am making all things new. Verse 5. Note, it's not John saying that God has thrown out the first and is making all new things. But no, God is making all things new. He is renewing what is there. Think back on the resurrected Jesus. The risen Jesus ate food. He had scars on his hands and his feet from his crucifixion. The disciples knew that they were touching and talking with the same Jesus that they had followed up in the hills of Galilee. The same Jesus who some of them who were brave enough were there at the cross and they saw being crucified. But this resurrected Jesus was also different. He was the same, but he was different, really different. His body was physical, but in a way that was clearly different. He would appear in rooms with the doors and the windows all locked. He would disappear in front of their eyes. This paradox of the same Jesus, but also a different Jesus, is precisely what John the Revelator was trying to communicate about the new heavens and the new earth. It's the same world, but yet it's been made new in a glorious way. God is not going to give up on this world and toss it in the trash, but God is going to restore it through this one who knows all and loves all, who forgives all, and is the firstborn of this new creation. We have confidence that the world is going to be restored because we already see it starting. Because Christ is risen. The future of the universe walked out of the tomb on Easter morning. Simultaneously, the same and different, gloriously so. The resurrection of Christ started a new world, one day that we shall one day inhabit in this new Jerusalem that comes down out of heaven to earth in Revelation chapter 21. The resurrection of Christ is a guarantee for us that these hopes of a new restored world are not just wishful thinking. No, they're realities that have already started in the resurrection of Christ.